how did the firm start? What was the original vision behind building the firm? And then we can get into maybe like, when did scaling this firm start?
It's funny. I got into this conversation the other day with a group of aspiring entrepreneurs about like how to find ideas. And it really just started with being curious, right? I mean, I graduated law school practicing at a defense firm, and you quickly realize how inefficient the practice of law is, right? And these firms and the way they operate, it's pretty old school. And so there were things that like I would gravitate to that just like didn't make sense. I had two ideas as I was like considering things. And one of them was related to how difficult it was to schedule depositions. And the other one, well, I mean, like literally this piece of litigation I was working on had like 15 parties and it was taking me a month to get this thing scheduled. And I was like, there has got to be a better way. And this is like, call it 2008, 2009. The other idea I had was just purely being interested in business, the economics of what I currently do. And so I'll never forget, I'm on the defense side. And I'm billing my time. For those that don't know, lawyers bill their time in 6/10 of an hour on the defense side. And then you bill your client. I spent 6 minutes on this. I spent 12 minutes on that. My boss had a plaintiff's case that he had referred to another attorney. And it came to my attention that that attorney was going to pay my boss 1/3 of the fee he was able to recover in exchange for that referral. So I remember sitting there and I'm like, wait a second. So you're telling me that if I refer $1 million case to somebody and plaintiff's attorneys generally get paid 1/3 of the gross settlement. So $1 million case, that attorney gets paid $333,000 on contingency, meaning that if they win, they get paid. If they lose, they don't get anything. And so you're telling me that they pay me 1/3 of their $333,000. They pay me $111,000 just for referring them that case. Light bulbs went off. I was like, I want to do that as much as humanly possible. And it just led to this like insatiable curiosity about like how this market works, how cases get generated and referred to attorneys around the country. And so that's where it all began.
That's incredible. I love just the curiosity. I feel like every founder kind of starts with this insatiable curiosity, and it's cool that you had a couple different paths and your eyes were open to just a slightly different business model in the context of law where you're already working. So that's really cool.
I really do think that's where the best ideas come from, is like folks that are establishing like an expertise in a particular subject matter and then recognizing the inefficiencies or opportunities within that domain. You know, because it's like once you become a subject matter expert in something, is like you're recognizing all of the things that are just like odd, right? I mean, like we all have a tendency to do things one way simply because that's the way we've been doing them, not necessarily because it's the most efficient way. And so, yeah, I think a lot of good ideas can come from that.
That makes a ton of sense. So the other thing that I think makes what you did unique, though, is I've met plenty of lawyers and law firms that have also stumbled upon the economics of referrals, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they scale to the extent that you have. So like, when in the process did you start thinking about turning this into a higher scale business? And I'm curious what challenges you found along the way in trying to go from maybe yourself and a couple people referring a few cases to the size that you're at now.
So referrals was just sort of like the entry point of interest. And then like, as I dug deeper, the thing that really got me interested was the analytics or lack thereof in the space. You know, there was this economic model that made a whole bunch of different things feasible, right? So I feel like it's so interesting because this was like in the age of like, you know, the advent of social media. And it was like a cool thing looking for a business model, right? It was like, you know, there was no business model associated with social media. My personal view on businesses and like the better way to do it, in my opinion, is like having a business model and then figuring out all the cool things you could do with economics that support those things. And so I had this thing, right? The referral fee or co-counsel fee, however you put it, where the economics would support diving into analytics and technology in a space where that didn't currently exist. And so I got really fascinated by sort of the economics of like, you advertise for a case and it costs X. And then 1, 2, 3, 5 years later, it monetizes for Y, right? How does that happen, right? And how do you do it most efficiently? And so that's what sort of like got the ball rolling, and really is where my interest lies, is in figuring out how to use analytics to get folks the best possible outcome they can on their case. And now add that on, right? So there's like different layers of interest. So there was this missing analytics piece. There's not a lot of technology in the space. And then this is maybe where I carry somewhat contrarian views on things, is like, I was also attracted to the fact that like the industry has a bad reputation. And I was like, how is it that the side of the law that is sticking up for individuals, people that have had something horrible happen in their life, and then an attorney says, I'm going to represent you on contingency. I'm going to make sure you have representation. I'm not going to charge you anything out of your pocket. How has that side of the V gotten the bad reputation? And so like, it was all of those things combined that led me to where I am today.